Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rank and File Sports. And today we're going to be hopping right back into our series where we are predicting every single Power 4 team's record by the start of the college football season. Today with the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, Iowa State is looking to be one of the more average teams in the Big 12 this season, but they definitely have the potential to win some big games. And just overall, looking at the schedule, there's a few tough games on there, but overall, most of them are winnable games for the Cyclones. The start to the season isn't too bad with North Dakota, an FCS school, at home before going on the road to Iowa. That one's going to be a tough game. Should be really, really close. These teams are very comparable talent-wise. Iowa has the edge on defense, while Iowa State will have the edge on offense, making this game probably very low scoring, but a very good game overall. Definitely will be a fun one to watch in week 2. After that, they get a bye week before going back home to face Arkansas State, which should also be a pretty easy matchup, as should the road trip to Houston. And following that, Baylor at home also won't be too terribly difficult. The Bears are not going to be an excellent team this season, so this should be a winnable game for Iowa State at home. At West Virginia will probably be uh, pretty on par with the road trip to Iowa as far as difficulty. West Virginia is a good team, and the fact that Iowa State is on the road is going to make this game tougher. Not to mention the fact that the teams are pretty comparable as far as talent goes. It's kind of a similar thing with Iowa, where West Virginia is probably the more talented defensive team, and Iowa State has the edge on offense. So it should be a really close game. UCF at home is also going to be a pretty tough matchup. UCF is a pretty talented team. They're not much better than Iowa State, but they might have a slight advantage. So this game should be pretty close, even though Iowa State does have the home field advantage. Following the second bye week, Texas Tech at home is also going to be a decently tough matchup. The Red Raiders are a very balanced team, and just overall, a pretty solid roster. This game is at home, so it should help Iowa State in keeping it close, and just overall going to be a pretty tough game, but not one that they are guaranteed to lose by any means. The road trip to Kansas is a bit of a different story. The Jayhawks are going to be a very good team, very talented on offense. They're going to be a tough team for this Cyclones team to stop. So this one's probably going to end up going in the Jayhawks' favor. The home game against Cincinnati, though, should be a pretty easy one for Iowa State. The Bearcats are not going to be a very good team this season, so we would expect Iowa State to win this one at home pretty easily. Utah on the road and Kansas State at home to end the year are both games against some of the top teams in the Big 12. Both of these are going to be very, very difficult and very tough games for the Cyclones to win. So overall, they've got 6 home games and 6 away games. And with only 2 of their opponents being ranked in the rank and file top 25, the Cyclones have a schedule difficulty of 4.5 out of 10.
Looking at the guaranteed wins for Iowa State, we have North Dakota and Arkansas State. This is an incredibly well coached Iowa State team that we don't think has any business losing to opponents that are either in the FCS like North Dakota is or in a conference that is not the Power Four like Arkansas State is. As far as likely wins go, we have Houston and Cincinnati. We expect Houston and Cincinnati to be two of the worst teams in the Big 12 this year. We think Iowa State, they always seem to win a game or two they shouldn't and lose a game or two they shouldn't. So they'll be, you know, upper middle of the pack to middle of the pack. Um, but as I just said, Houston and Cincinnati, we expect to be two of the lowest rated teams in the Big 12 this season. So we got to give Iowa State a pretty sizable advantage over both teams. Looking at the toss-ups for Iowa State, we have Baylor, West Virginia, UCF, Texas Tech, and Kansas State. Starting off with Baylor, this is a Baylor team whose coach Aranda is a great strategist, not a great recruiter, which is why we've seen Baylor slip from Big 12 champs to Big 12 doormat in recent years. But again, he is a great strategist. Iowa State doesn't have the best athletes, they're just incredibly disciplined and well coached. So, that to us is a recipe for a game that will be close. As far as West Virginia goes, West Virginia is a pretty good team. So is Iowa State. Neither team is, you know, absolutely amazing on paper. Both are pretty well coached. Both are, places you don't want to play on the road for sure in the Big 12. So we expect this game to go down to the wire. As far as UCF goes, they're coached by Gus Malzahn, one of the best coaches in the conference. Iowa State's coached by Matt Campbell, one of the best coaches in the conference. So we expect this game to be a competitive one and one that could end up coming down to who has the ball last. And finally, with Texas Tech and Kansas State, both teams are two of the more talented teams in the Big 12, specifically Texas Tech. They get pretty good athletes. They're from the state of Texas, a very rich recruiting soil. So we think that that does play into the Red Raiders' advantage a little bit. But we also think that Iowa State's coaching is top notch, which gives the Cyclones an advantage of their own. Um, Two big advantages for the two teams playing each other is always a recipe for a game that's going to be close. Kansas State's so well coached and so disciplined, and they have a track record of success in the Big 12 at this point. Iowa State's starting to build that reputation for themselves, so we expect this game to be one that could be won on a last-second field goal or could even go multiple overtimes. We think both teams are that evenly matched. As for the likely losses for Iowa State, we have Iowa and Kansas. The Iowa one's going to sting for Cyclones fans. As we all know, Iowa and Iowa State really don't like each other. It's a big rivalry in the state of Iowa. We think Iowa's defense is absolutely lethal. It's super tough to have to, you know, try and score on. So we think that the Hawkeyes are going to be able to win this one. It will be close for a while. It's a rivalry game, but we're pretty confident in the Hawkeyes' ability to, escape with the win. As far as Kansas goes, their quarterback Jalen Daniels is electric. He is a dark horse Heisman Trophy contender. We don't think Iowa State's defense is quite good enough to be able to slow him down enough to be able to beat the Jayhawks. Finally, we have one guaranteed loss for Iowa State this year, and that's Utah. Utah has been the class of the Pac 12 in recent years, and now they transition into the Big 12 for the foreseeable future. We think Utah right away will contend for the Big 12 championship and may win it. We think they have a good chance to. As much as we like Iowa State, we don't quite think they're good enough to be able to challenge the Utes for very long in a Big 12 conference clash.
Moving on to the schedule recap, we do have Iowa State winning that first game against North Dakota pretty easily, but the road trip to Iowa is where we think they trip up first this season. The Hawkeyes, with the home field advantage and that strong defense, we do like to win this game, although very, very close. Arkansas State, Houston, and Baylor, then those next three games should all be pretty easy wins for the Cyclones. But we do like both West Virginia on the road and UCF at home to be Big 12 losses for Iowa State, moving them to 4-3 on the season going into their second bye week. Out of that, we like Iowa State to take down Texas Tech at home. This is a pretty good Texas Tech team, so this will be a good win for Iowa State. And then we also have Iowa State upsetting Kansas on the road. Now, like I said, this is going to be a very talented Kansas team with a very talented offense, but they probably are going to lose to a team that they shouldn't this season, and we went ahead and put that as Iowa State. Now, Cincinnati at home should be a pretty easy win. That one we also gave to the Cyclones, moving them to 7-3, going into those last two pretty tough games. The Utah game, we can't really see them winning on the road. Utah is probably the most talented team in the Big 12 overall, so that one is a loss. However, the game against Kansas State at home is a toss-up. Just barely made it into that toss-up category, but we do actually like the Cyclones to close out the season over Kansas State with a win, moving their record to 8-4. Adding up all the percentages, the projected record sits at 6.7 and 5.3, so favoring not quite as many wins as we have. It's definitely possible that Iowa State finishes at 7-5 because we have them pulling off a couple upsets. But there are also a couple games on there that they might lose, such as Kansas State, Kansas. They could potentially beat Iowa. They could beat West Virginia. They could beat UCF. So the ceiling is pretty decent for this Iowa State team. As high as maybe 9-3, 10-2 seems plausible, but a lot less likely than this 8-4 record that we have them at. FPI has them sitting at 6.6 and 5.4, so also between that 6 and 7 win mark, and they have a 4.7% chance to make the college football playoffs. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.